Modules, pages, and COVID-19. Oh my. Yes, I changed the title of this presentation given the situation that we are all in. I think we can all appreciate the change in title. And let me go ahead and take this moment to introduce you to our chat facilitator. We've actually got several out there. Paige Durham is joining us from Germana. Terry Milroy is coming to us from Southside. Sherry Prupp is from the system office. David Todd from the system office. So they're out there facilitating your chat questions. The format for tonight is I'm going to be presenting on how to create modules and pages and different types of content to try and give you a jump start on working in Canvas. So we're going to be moving through this workshop and we're going to figure out what is a module. What can you add to a module? What is a page and what can you put on a page? What is other content? And we're going to give you some examples of that. And then how do you add that content into your modules? So really what I hope to do is give you a framework for beginning to put your course together and organize it and add all the elements that you want to add to it to make it a rich experience for your students. So what is a module? Well, first, a module in Canvas is a basic unit by which we organize things. And I'm going to share my screen. Well, I'll share my screen in a moment. But there's a page in Canvas rather, or an area in Canvas that is called modules. And that is where we do all of the course design work within Canvas. So you want to create modules for all the different things that you're wanting to cover, and you want to come up with an organizational method for doing that. Now, this is one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking to faculty about, and it is that you need to come up with this organizational method. I don't care how you do it. I don't try to prescribe one particular method over another. You can organize your course by weeks. If you want to do week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, I think that's perfectly fine. That's how I do some of the courses that I teach. I find that students tend to think in a weekly mind frame. What do I have to do this week? What do I have to do next week? So on and so forth through the semester until they reach the end. You can also organize your course in units of material based on the subject matter. So if you're teaching biology, maybe you've got one unit that's invertebrates, another one is vertebrates, maybe one's on different sections of the human body. So you've got the circulatory system and the lymphatic system and all these different things. It's up to you how you organize your modules, but I want you to keep in mind, whatever organization method you choose, please be consistent and stick with it. Where I do see faculty led astray is they'll do a module on unit 1, unit 2, and then suddenly they'll come in with a week 4 module. And what I'm always striving for in courses is to create some sort of consistency and some sort of replication so that we can kind of create a rhythm. Students know what to expect. They know how your course is laid out and how each module is going to unfold, and they have an idea of how that is all going to unfold in the work that they do. And it's basically just coming up with a pedagogy for working with those students and then sticking to it. So here on my screen are some good best practices for teaching online. Number 1 with a bullet, especially right now, because a lot of students are doing online for the very first time, and that is instructor presence. If you want to bring down the stress level on students who are for the first time getting into an online situation, instructor presence can go a long way towards doing that. And that is simply getting yourself into the course, posting announcements, appearing on video, talking to the students directly, participating in the discussion boards, but really just showing that you're a human being just like them, unsure even of this new online format that you may be teaching in, but not just sharing your experience, but letting them know that someone else is there to help support them and help get them through this. So instructor presence cannot be downplayed, especially given the circumstances that we're in. Set clear expectations for your students. Set learning objectives so that they know what each module, what it is they're trying to achieve. Make sure they're getting prompt feedback, and that loops back around to instructor presence. That feedback is very important. They don't know what they don't know, and if they're out there doing work, They don't know whether they're doing it correctly unless they're getting that feedback from you. And if they're not doing it correctly, they may not know how to correct their course if they're not getting that feedback. So feedback, very, very important. Make sure you're engaging the students. Let's not just be doing, recorded lectures in Zoom and putting those out in Canvas. Let's find some activities for the students to become engaged in material and really, embrace that kind of learning, some sort of active learning experience for students. You need real world applications in what you're doing, and you need to teach for online students. Think about one of the big ones for me, and I see a lot of allied health faculty do this. They will get on Zoom or they'll use some other method to record a lecture, and that lecture is 45 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes in length. If you're sitting down as a student to watch that video after it's been created, that is far too long for them to just sit there and watch. It is not the same environment as when you're in a classroom in that situation, when you're sitting at home and having to watch that video online. Our students, most of them are working. They have other expectations that are pulling on them all the time. And so you may have this working mother of three who's trying to figure out, when can I watch this video between coming home and putting the kids to bed, or right after the kids go to bed, or right before they serve dinner at night. And if you can take that same 1 hour lecture and you can chunk it down into smaller parts, maybe it's 3 parts at 15 minutes, a video. It's the same amount of material, but it's presented in 3 15-minute videos. That can make all the difference in the world when it comes to students being able to actually engage in the content that you're putting out there and fit it into their schedule. So please try to keep some of that stuff in mind, but all of these are excellent best practices for teaching online and things that we need to be thinking about as faculty members. So why modules? Well, the modules give us some flexibility. Like I said, you can decide how you want to divide your course up and place it into modules. You can divide it by weeks, you can divide it by units. There's all sorts of different ways you can organize your course, and modules gives us the ultimate flexibility. It also creates kind of a linear format for students. They know they can work through the first module, then the second module, then the third module, and they can step through the material that you're putting out there from beginning to end in the semester. So let's get into how you add a module in Canvas. So I'm going to switch now from this PowerPoint to actually sharing my screen. So give me just a moment to make that switch happen. Okay, so you should now be seeing my screen in Canvas, and I'm actually in a sandbox course in an empty modules page. And I purposely went out right before this session started and just wiped the slate clean. I had a whole bunch of stuff out here where I'd been demonstrating things for faculty for the last couple of weeks. And I thought, let's just clean it all out and start with an empty page, because for most faculty, this is what you're faced with, a whole lot of emptiness, and you're trying to figure out what goes there. So the first thing I want you to do when you're approaching this class, putting your class online, is to think through that organizational structure. I would go so far as to sketch it out on a piece of paper or open up a Word document and create an outline of what you want your modules to be and how that organization is going to look. If you do that, I think it'll speed you along in this process. Once you've identified those modules, then you can come out here into Canvas and you can start building the framework that you're going to fill in as you create your course. So let me kind of show you how easy that can be. I got to move a couple of things. Give me just a second. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner of this page, you're going to see an Add Module button. Adding a module is as simple as clicking that button, and I can create several modules pretty quickly. So just for an example, I'm going to use a weekly format because, again, I've created several courses this way and it works for me. So again, this is just an example. But I want to create a week 1, a week 2, and a week 3 module. To do that, I'm going to click the Add Module button, and I'm going to click week 1 for the name of the first module. And you can see I've done this before since they show up in that drop down. And I'm going to click Add Module. I just created a module. Now I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to call it week 2. And I'm not trying to oversimplify this, but I want to show you how quickly you can start to create your framework. And we'll create a third module, week 3. Now, all I've been doing is clicking on that add module button, giving that module a title. It could just as easily have been Unit 1, the respiratory system, Unit 2, the circulatory system, Unit 3, the lymphatic system. However you want that information to be conveyed to the student, you need to create the modules so that it matches up. Week 1, week 2, week 3. I now have 3 modules in Canvas. There's nothing in them. So we're gonna go through how to actually start putting information into those modules. And you can always come back and edit the name of a module later. So if I wanted to come back and say I wasn't happy with, this week 1, week 2, week 3 format, I can go out here and give me just a second, I'm moving things around on my screen. And I can click on the module, just click on the module, I'm sorry, not click on the module, click on the 3 dots to the far right of the module, and then select edit. And then it takes me right back to this edit window where I can change the name. And as I'm putting these modules in order on the screen, these modules are drag and drop. So if I were to get them in the wrong order and I wanted to switch the order, I can drag them and drop them and put them in whatever order I want. So as you're creating these modules, you can just, you're just creating placeholders for all of your content. So let's take a moment. I want to stop right here and I want to take a couple of minutes and let you get out there in your sandbox, and I want you to create a couple of modules just from scratch. Open up your sandbox out in Canvas and follow the directions that I just gave you. All you've got to do is click the add module button, and I want you to create a couple of modules in Sandbox. And remember, think about consistency. I've often heard it described as like a trapper keeper from our old school days. You're creating a trapper keeper with folders in it for all the different things that you're trying to collect information on. So let's create your first module. Okay, I hope that was enough time to go out and create your very first module in Canvas if that's what you're doing. And I appreciate being unmuted. I'll make a note to myself. I cannot mute myself or I get muted and then locked out. So I'm back with you now. Let's move from activity one, which was creating your first module, to actually putting things in that module. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint and I'm actually going to switch back over to my screen share in Canvas. So give me a second to make that transition happen. All right, so back in Canvas we are. I've got 3 modules for the first 3 weeks of class, nothing in any of them. So let's start building the module and how we want it to look. So I'm going to create an item right off the bat, and I'm going to make a page. So I'm going to show you how I would go about building a module. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page. So I selected page from the drop down. Now let's take a look real quick. Let me slow down. My Yankee is coming out and I'm starting to talk really fast. Notice the different options that you have for adding items to modules. I can add an assignment, a quiz, a file, a page, a discussion. I can add a text header if I'm wanting to create more organization within my module. I can also add an external URL and an external tool. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to add a page because I want to add my module objectives to my module. So I'm going to go to page and I'm going to select new page. And if you look down here, you can see it gives me a place where I can give my new page a name or a title. And I'm going to call it week 1 objectives. And I'm going to click add item. So just like that, I've clicked the add button and I just added a page for week 1 objectives. The next thing that I'd like to add is let's add an assignment. So I'm going to click the add button again, and I'm just going to keep my names pretty generic. And this time, instead of a page, I'm going to add an assignment. And I'm going to ask for a new assignment, and I'm going to call it week 1 assignment. We'll talk more about what the assignment is in a moment. And then I'm going to click add item. And so now you can see I have week 1 assignment. Now there's nothing in either one of these. These are really just placeholders. I'm creating a structure, a wireframe, an outline, however you want to look at it, for how my course is going to be laid out in Canvas. So after the week 1 assignment, I think I want a discussion board. I want to get some discussion going with my students. So I'm going to click the add button on that week 1 module, and I'm going to add a discussion. And again, I'm not being super creative at the moment, so I'm just going to say new topic, and I'm going to call it a week 1 discussion. And we'll click add item. So now I've got a week 1 discussion. And you can see how I'm laying this out. I can add all sorts of elements to this particular module. I think I'll add one more thing just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to add a quiz. We'll call it, guess what, a week 1 quiz. I know it's a little boring, but it's the best I can do on a Tuesday night. So week 1 quiz, add that to my module. Oh, what happened? I must have done something wrong there. Oh, yes, I did. Did anybody pay attention to what I did? I got a little too fast. I actually created a module called week 1 quiz. Actually glad I did that, because if you're not paying attention, it's easy to do. So I need to get rid of that. I don't want that to be there. So you can delete a module. So I'm going to come down here to where I did week 1 quiz. Forgive me my mistake, but actually it was a good learning thing. And I'm going to click delete. I'm going to get rid of it. Come back to the module again. Click the right add button to add to the module. And then select quiz, select new quiz, select week 1 quiz, or call it week 1 quiz. I'm glad I can't see the chat. I'm sure I'm getting a bunch of eye rolls out there. Add the item. There we go. Okay. So I've got my objectives, I've got an assignment, I've got a discussion, and I've got a quiz. Again, there's nothing in any of these. So the next thing that I want to focus on doing is I want you to add something to the module that you just created. So let's take a quick break. You can add some week 1 objectives, or you can add an assignment, but I actually want you to go to the module that you just created in your sandbox in Canvas, and I want you to add something to that module, some placeholder for a piece of content that you could add as part of what's going to be in your module. So let me stop sharing my screen, and I want you to go out and add something to that module, and let's see how you do on that. And I'm not going to mute my microphone this time so I don't get locked out.
I gave you back control. You can mute if you want. You have control of it.
Thank you. I didn't want to be gulping down water or something and everybody hear me doing that.
Ken, are you talking?
I am, and you didn't hear me. Thank you. So I want to move now. I think everyone's had time to create a piece of content, or at least a placeholder for content in their module. And what I want to do is switch back over to Canvas, and we are going to add some actual content to one of our content items and take a look at the rich content editor and how that works, so that you can begin to see how you can take these placeholders that you've created for objectives, an assignment, discussion, a quiz, and begin to actually flesh those out into things that students can do. So let's take a look at week 1 objectives. Week 1 objectives, if you'll remember, I created a page. So in order to edit this, I'm actually going to click on the name, which is week 1 objectives. And when I do that, it brings me to a page where I can select to edit. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see there's an edit button. That's going to open up my rich context editor or content editor. And now I can actually add content to this page that I've created so that it's more than just a placeholder. So I could start off with learner by just typing in the box, because it's just a text box. Learners will achieve the following. Notice that I have a little spell check going there. Okay, so we can fix that. Now, you do have this rich content editor. It's what we call a WYSIWYG editor for just being able to edit the content that you're placing inside this text box. And I have all of the options that you would see in something like Microsoft Word. I can highlight this sentence and I can make it bold. I can italicize it. I can underline it. I can change the color of it. Let's go for a red. You can do some formatting as far as subscripts. You can do formatting as far as alignments. You can bullet point it. All the way across the top here, you get most of the options that you would see in any kind of text editor, and it's very straightforward. Then if you start down here on the second row of the text editor, you'll see that I get the option to be able to insert a table if you're wanting to use tables to organize things. You can insert media. You can also link to a URL. You can unlink from a URL. You can insert an image. So let me stop for a moment and show you how to insert an image. I think that's a little different how they do that here in Canvas. So if I were to insert an image, I think the easiest way to do it is not from this embed image link right here. I would simply place my cursor where I want the image to be, and I would come all the way to the right-hand side, and you'll see that you have 3 tabs, one for links, one for files, and one for images. And I can click on images, and you can see that it lists any of the images that I currently have that are out here in my course. But I also get the option to upload a new image. So I could go out and upload a new image, and I could say choose a file. And I've got a profile pic that's sitting out here on my desktop. So I'm just going to use that for my example. So I'll select that profile pic and I'll click open. And you'll notice, whoops, after you do that, you have to click upload. So I'm going to click the upload button. Choose my file, open. You can put your alternate text in, or if it's just a decorative image, you can check the box for decorative image. Now, if you need to put in alternative text, that's important from an ADA standpoint. So if it is an image that you're using for instruction, good to give it that alternative text option so that a screen reader can pick up on that. And then once I've done this, I can click the upload button down here, and it's going to upload that image and put it right there where my cursor was. Now you can see that image is huge. We do not need a huge picture of me up there, but I can resize it by clicking on it and just grabbing the handle. And so I can resize that image to whatever size I want. So you can start to see that you've got the ability to add an image in there. Same thing works with linking to files. If I wanted to link to a particular file, if I wanted to add a link to the syllabus here, let me just show how that works. I can type the word syllabus, which is the word I want to link. I can highlight it with my mouse just by dragging it. And then I can come back to files. I can look down through here and find my syllabus for spring 2020. And if I click on that, it changes that word syllabus into a hyperlink that then links directly to the file. And I get the same option here for uploading a new file if I want to upload it directly from my computer into Canvas. So if you're adding images or you're adding files, I recommend doing that from over here on the right-hand side using the Images and Files tab. You also get an option where you can link students to another area within the course, which is also handy. And you can do that from this right-hand side as well. So you get a math equation editor, comes after the embed image. You have the math equation editor that's in here. You have the ability to link directly to your Canvas Studio. I'm a big fan of Studio. Those of you who've heard me in other workshops have heard me tout all the benefits of Canvas Studio. But if I click this, it actually opens up Canvas Studio and gives me access to any of the videos that I have created out there in Studio. So if I wanted to add, let's say I wanted to add this mitosis video, I could just click select. It gives me some options around allowing comments. I think for this one, I'm not going to allow comments. And then I can click embed, and it's going to embed that video directly into my course. And you can see now that it's in there. So you can begin to see how these tools can help you pull together a bunch of different elements and begin to create the content that you want to exist on this page. Now, if we're doing learning objectives, we're probably not getting that fancy. So I'm probably just going to have like a numbered list or a bulleted list of the learning objectives that are going to be for this module. So creating a page could be just as easy as typing in your different objectives for the module. And as soon as I'm done creating the content that I want to be on this page, all I need to do is click save, and we'll come back later. We'll publish it when we're sure everything is just how we want it. So that is the rich content editor. I mean, that's really going fast. Actually, let me come back. I do want to show a couple of things that I didn't show. Let me just back up. We'll go back to edit and hit a couple of the tools that I didn't mention. You do have the ability to indent your paragraphs. You can go out to Creative Commons and find your favorites in Creative Commons. You can add other external tools that are available out there in Canvas. You can record and upload media directly into the space. And then you can also resize your fonts. So if I wanted to make that a little bit larger, I can do that too. You can format the document. Right now it's set to paragraph, but you've got the ability to format it in the same way you would a Word document. And then another really great tool right here at the end, it looks like Galileo's man, standing there in the circle. And that is actually an accessibility checker. So as an example, if I were to recolor this, learners will achieve the following objectives. And let's say that I chose a really poor choice for my font color. Let's say I chose this pale yellow. Yeah, not a good choice of color, but if I run this check accessibility checker, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to point out that that is not a good color. There's not a lot of contrast between the text and the background. And it's going to give me this little color selection window where I can actually just drag this dot until I see it allow me to apply. So I can drag it down here and then click apply, and it will change the color for me. So now you can see it's still not a great color, but it's much more readable than it was when it was pale yellow. So this accessibility checker is a really nice feature that can help you make sure that the content you've placed in that window is accessible. So then I'm just going to click save. Let me share with you for just a moment. Some colleges may have already made the switch to a new rich content editor. It has many of the same tools that you saw in the content editor that I just demoed, but just to give you an idea what the new content editor looks like so that you can see the difference. Give me just a second to share that. So that is what the new rich content editor appears to look like. I've been experimenting with this out in a couple of sandbox. We've not rolled it out at Virginia Highlands yet, but just know that that is something coming. Probably this summer it'll become the default content editor everywhere, I would suspect. So let's do this. Let's go out, and if you don't mind, create a page, add some bullet points to it. And if you want, you can add an image, but I want you to get into that rich content editor for a minute and just play around. See that you can create whatever kind of content that you want. So if you'll go into your sandbox, let's take a couple of minutes to let you create a page and then work with that rich content editor to add some bullet points or some items, add a picture. I just want you to get out there and get your hands on it and see how it works.
Ken, this is just the 20-minute warning.
Thank you. We'll give everyone just a minute more to be out there and explore the content editor. All right, so we're back in Canvas. Let's pull everybody back to the workshop, and I want to jump into, I'm going to kind of take them out of order. Let's jump into the discussion. We'll take a look at the discussion. We'll take a look at an assignment, and if time is still on my side, we may even take a look at how you set up a quiz, but I definitely want to look at the discussion and the assignment to show you how those particular items work. So let's take a look at discussion first. So I want to edit my discussion. Remember, I've created this placeholder for week 1 discussion, but there is nothing there. So let's take a moment and let's edit that discussion. Again, to edit an item in your module, to open it up and begin to add the actual assignment, you want to click on the link, and then in the upper right-hand corner, click the edit button. And for discussion, you're going to notice, and again, this is pretty consistent throughout Canvas. I can edit the title, and then here's that text box in that rich content editor where I can actually add content. And again, it could simply be text directions on giving students a prompt for the discussion board, or it could be adding a video from my Canvas studio into the discussion for them to watch first, and then some text that tells them the type of discussion or the issue that I want them to discuss. But again, giving them that prompt on what they're supposed to write about. And that would all go inside this text box or this content area. Now, if you scroll down, you'll get into the mechanics of how the discussion board works. So I'm going to scroll down the page and you'll notice that I can attach a file. So if you have a case study, a PDF for a Word document or a PowerPoint or something like that that you're wanting to share, that you want students to review prior to doing their discussion board post, you can attach that. And then you get into the options for the discussion board itself. This very first option, I cannot stress enough to make sure you check this box. Please check the allow threaded replies. There are two types of discussion boards in Canvas. One is a threaded discussion board, which is the type of discussion board that we typically think of when we think of discussion boards, where someone can reply to someone else. It indents those replies nicely and it formats those threads in such a way that it's easy to follow. The other type of discussion that Canvas has is if you don't check this box, it becomes a focused discussion. And each discussion item, they're not threaded, so someone replies to someone else in a discussion post. It's simply in a long line of posts that are being made. There's no threaded formatting to it at all. And when we first moved to Canvas, I had some instructors who didn't check this box when they created their discussion board, and then they had a lot of issues with following the discussion between students and who was replying to who and everything. So my best practice on discussions is make sure that box is checked. I also like this option, and again, I'm just editorializing a little bit, but I like the users must post before seeing replies. Often in discussions, you'll see students waiting until the very last minute to do their reply because they want to see what their classmates did. They want to make sure they're doing it right. So they'll wait and wait and wait for their classmates to post. And then at the 11th hour, when everybody starts posting, they'll jump in and they'll start putting their post up once they see what everybody else is doing. If you put this checkbox, if you activate this checkbox, then they have to post before they can see anyone else's replies. And I just think that's just a good practice. I've never used the Enable podcast. Couldn't tell you the first thing about it. If it's going to be a graded discussion, then you want to make sure that you have checked the graded box. Now look, watch this really close. You'll notice when I check the graded box, I get some different options that show up. As soon as I check that, I get some different options down here. Allow liking is completely up to you. I don't know from an instructional point of view whether or not there's any efficacy to turning that on, but if you want to allow liking, you can. It does make it a little more social media like. Students can maybe vote on each other's posts. That's up to you completely. But allow threaded replies. Users must post before seeing replies. And if it's going to be graded, you want to make sure you check the graded option. You can do a group discussion as well in Canvas, but you'll notice as soon as I hit the graded option, I get the option to add points. So I'm going to make this worth 100 points. But again, if your grading system is that you weigh everything by the number of points, you could have 50 points in there or 25 points, whatever works for your grading scheme. You get some options on how to display the grade. It defaults to points, but you do get some other options there as well. You can assign the discussion to a particular group. So again, if you're grading everything on a 100-point scale, I can assign it to a group. I don't have a discussion group, but you'll notice there's a new group option. So I could create one and just call it discussions. And then later I could weight the discussions so that they were worth, say, 20% of the final grade or something. You can do peer reviews as well as part of discussions. And then when you finally get down here to the assign, you'll notice it says assign to everyone, and you can assign a due date. So very important in Canvas that you're assigning due dates. So if I want to make this due next Tuesday, I can. That due date is going to show up In the course summary below the syllabus, it's also going to show up in the students' calendars as a due date, and it's going to show up in their to-do as a due date that they have to meet. So that's why putting this due date in there is very important. You can set availability dates so that the discussion board is actually only visible between the two dates. And then as you see throughout Canvas, you get this option to add exceptions. And this is something that I really like as well. If I have a student, let's say that I have a student who has fallen ill, again, given the time that we're in, that's appropriate, and they need a little extra time to do a discussion board, I can select the student. In a real class situation, you would see a list of all your students listed down here. I could select that student and I could assign a new due date to that student, and only that student would be able to see it. All the other students would remain at the original due date. So I do like that option. Once I'm done, I can click save. And now my discussion board is ready to go. And if I come back here to modules, you can see that my discussion is now worth 100 points. So I'm showing that we've only got about 12 minutes left. I want to go ahead and move into showing how to set up an assignment and run through those options with you as well. So I'm going to come up here to assignment, and if I want to edit the assignment, the very first thing I do is I click this link for week 1 assignment. When I do that, this page will open up and I can click the edit button. And you'll notice with week 1 assignment, a very similar format to what we saw with the week 1 discussion. I can rename it if I want to, and then I get this content window or text box where I can add content. And you've got the same rich content editor that you had before. So again, you can add photos, you could add a video, you can add text, any kind of content. You can add an attachment. You can link a document in here. So you can build this assignment however you want to build it for the student. Then you'll notice that I get the option for adding points, just like I did with the discussion board. I'm going to make it worth 100 points. I can add it to an assignment group. Now you can see it's in a group called assignments, but depending on what the assignment is, maybe it's an essay and I want to add it to a group called essays. Again, I can create a new group right here while I'm in the window, and I could call it essays. And then later I'd have the option to have my essays worth 20% of the grade or something like that. So there, I've added it to the essays group. You'll notice I get the option to display grade as, and same options as before with the discussion board. You do get the option to not count the assignment towards the final grade. That's good if you've got students writing drafts. So given this example of an essay, maybe one of their assignments is to do a rough draft, but I'm not actually going to use that grade as part of their final grade. And so I could check that box so that would be the case. Then here's a new option. This is the submission type, and I want to take a moment to drill down on this for you. You'll notice that the very first submission type is no submission. This is really one, if you are teaching a class and let's say there's a speaker that's coming to campus and you're willing to give students some extra points on their grade if they attend that speaker or they attend a play or something like that. And the student attending the play, they're going to have to sign in on a sign-in sheet or something, and you'll get a copy of that. There's no submission involved. It's just going to be a grade in your grade column, and the students aren't turning anything in, and you're just applying points. So you can have a no submission option for your assignment. Then you get an online option, and this is for assignments that are going to be submitted online through Canvas. So if you choose the online option, when you're done, it's going to provide students with a link for being able to upload their document directly into Canvas to submit it to you. So if you're doing online assignments, I really advise don't have students send you things by email. That can get really messy really quick. And I know a lot of instructors have a certain level of comfort with email. But when you start getting large classes sending you assignments, all in individual emails being sent to you, it can get it can get overwhelming pretty quickly. I really advise using this online assignment feature in Canvas, because when students submit it, it goes straight to your gradebook. You know that they've submitted it. It's easy for you to keep up with, and you can grade it right here in Canvas and have that grade appear out there in the grades for students. So I really like this feature for doing an online assignment. If you choose online, you get some options around that. You can make available to the student a text entry box where they can type their assignment directly in the window. It's not my preferred method, especially on longer assignments where a student might be typing in that window for a long period of time. If they're doing an essay, I wouldn't recommend this because their internet could drop out in the middle of typing that assignment up and they could lose what they had written. So I really don't like using the text entry box myself, but again, it's an option for you if you want to use it. Another option that I prefer is the file uploads. So in this option, a student could be writing their essay in a Microsoft Word document, and they're working in Word on their computer, doesn't require them to be on the internet to do it. And then when they're done, they could upload that document into Canvas. And if for some reason it didn't upload, they still have it and they could just re-upload it if they needed to. So I like the file upload option. There's also a media recordings option and a website URL option where they can submit a website URL, or they could submit a multimedia recording that they're doing. So all of those are great options. As far as the file types, you'll notice that I get an option to restrict upload file types. You don't have to check this box, but if you find that you often get students sending you the wrong file type, and I see this happen every couple of years when the new MacBook comes out and every student gets one for Christmas, and they suddenly start wanting to turn things in using Pages or something like that. It really helps if you turn that on, and then you can set it to just DOC and DOCX, and all it will accept is a Word document. So if they're working on a Mac, they'll have to make sure they save it as a Word document if they're not working in Word on their Mac. Again, if you've got students doing something in Excel, you can set it to Excel. It just gives you some control over what's being submitted to you. But that is an option. You don't have to check it. You can simply go with the file uploads. Other options for submission types include on paper. So again, if you are using Canvas in a classroom setting where you're meeting face-to-face with students, or maybe it's a hybrid setting, you can have an on-paper option where students are submitting that paper to you in class, but the column is being created in Canvas for you to post that grade after you've graded the paper. And then there's an external tool option. Again, if you're using something like, maybe you're using Canvas Studio and you want them to submit, or you're using some sort of publisher option that uses an external tool, you can link that option here.
Ken, 5-minute warning.
Thank you. So with 5 minutes to go, you can also make it a group assignment so that it's assigned to a group of students, but they're only making one submittal. It also allows for peer reviews. It allows for anonymous grading. And then you should recognize this assigned to box where you place your due date. So again, I can set my due date. Let's set this one for the 29th on Sunday, just before midnight. And then you get the same options. If I needed to extend a due date for an individual student, I can click this add button and I can extend that due date for that one particular student without impacting the rest of the class, or even letting them know that I'm doing it. Once I'm done with all of the settings for my assignment and I've given the student the directions, I can just click save. Whoops. I have to get rid of the extra assigned to option before I can save it. So that is how you add an assignment into Canvas for students to work on. And again, if you want them to turn it in through Canvas, make sure you select that online file submission as the type of assignment that you're doing. So we're down to just a few minutes left, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. There are a lot of other things that you can do in your modules. You can add publisher content by using the external tool. You can add a Canvas Studio option into a module to show a video. There's the discussion board. There's a whole thing on building quizzes, and we could spend we most definitely will spend a whole hour probably telling you about how to do quizzes. And you can import quiz test banks from publishers, or you can build the quizzes yourself inside the quizzes tool. Canvas calls them quizzes, but again, it can be a quiz, a test, an exam. It all just goes under that quiz tool, and you use the quiz tool for creating that. So there are plenty of options to let you build out your module with all of the tools that you want to use for both the content and for the assessment piece of the students. I hope you have found this workshop to be useful. I hope you're able to take these skills and turn around and start using Canvas to build modules, structure your class, add a page, add an assignment, add a discussion board. Visit some of our other modules if you want to learn how to add a quiz or some of those other elements. But this should provide you with a working knowledge to get you through some of the beginning steps of building a class in Canvas. Thank you so much for your time this evening.